Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel, Watercolor Impressions. This week we're going to learn how to paint a loose landscape in watercolors. We'll do a scene from one of my trip from Quebec, a nice Cerulean beach shore painting. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And let's get started, guys. Years ago, I never approached a subject like this because it's really complex and I don't have that confidence or faith in me when I started my watercolor journey. So there's one thing before you start this painting loose landscape or any other painting you do, have some faith and confidence and keep going until the end. And I'm starting with a sketch, and I'm also changing my reference a little bit. What I mean by that, I have a reference, and it is like quite the composition is not that great, and I also want that house to be pop up more than the rest of her painting. So that's the main goal, and I try to arrange my shapes in a such way that I'm telling a story. So that's what all painters telling a story comes in place. And I sketched really light, so I'm gonna start with the sky, and the sky is really complex in this reference. So I try to simplify it and try to create that mood and capture that essence from the cloud. So I started with the cobalt blue at the top, and I also used yellow ochre with a little bit of white paint in it, and before it dries out, and I glazed over it. And now there is some dampness in my paper, so I'll try to create some cloud shapes here and there. And I also try to leave some holes to light to peek through because the light is against the clouds, so the light is coming through, and the edges which you leave as white bits on top of the clouds, and which gives the illusion of a light peeking through, and it gives the rim edges in the clouds. And you can also use tissue paper to get rid of some of the paint you applied, and that also creates some texturing for the clouds. I think I'm happy with the clouds, and I brought the wash all the way at the bottom, and still it's a little bit dry. So now I'll start with the grass, which is on the top of the beach shore. And now I'm connecting that shape with the rocks. For the rocks, I'm using a little bit of grayish color, because there is two types of rocks in the reference, and there is like the grayish rocks, and there's also warmish rocks. For the grayish rocks, I use any kind of neutral tint with a little bit of yellow ochre in it, or cobalt blue. And for the warmer rocks, I'm using cadmium red and yellow ochre to create that warmth. So I'm taking that wash, and this is really hard to see when you start painting, and there is some kind of gradient happening from the seashore to this moss patch, green moss patches at the bottom of the foreground. So I want to create the gradient, and I also want to create the color variation. So this is what painting loose comes in. So you have to see the color, and you have to paint as fast as you can without thinking. So that gives the looseness in the style. Even though the colors doesn't exactly match, it's fine. We are trying to capture the essence, and I don't talk about colors that much because every painter see colors differently, and we put colors as we impress us, not like what we see. So if somebody picks this painting and try to copy the exact same thing, they will have different colors than what I'm having in my painting. And even if I paint this painting again, I wouldn't have the exact colors what I copied in my painting. So let's start with the background. So the background, I'm keeping it minimal. I'm wetting the paper at the back of the background, and I'm putting some greenish cobalt blue in it. So because it's in distance, we want to create the depth and distance in our painting. And I also connected the shape to one of the houses. And when it comes to background, and try to block it as fast as you can. So don't think about it, because you don't need to put that many details, because background is a background, and it just like a mirror shape. So now I'm painting on the roof. For the roof, it looks a little bit grayish on the reference, but I'm adding some little bit of warmth in it, and it also gives this complement to the grayish sky, bluish sky against the warmish color. So this is one of the color theory you could look into it. So complementing colors and creating contrast is another thing when you're painting a loose landscape is really necessary, because it gives this contrast and the painting looks really amazing. And I also lift the, if you noticed it, the houses are a little bit lower to the eye level. Like what I mean by that, it's above, it's below the grass patch, but I lifted above so that I can create a beautiful composition. And the houses also are like a focal point in our painting as well. And before it dries out, I added a wash for the side of the houses, and even like it looks a little bit dull in the reference, but I also used a little bit of coolness in my wash. Again, this is what I was talking about, creating that contrast between warm and cool colors, and it also looks good when it's dried out. And whenever you paint loose landscape, you have to block everything really fast. If you go or something, it's fine, and because that's how loose landscapes are, and it creates that illusion of confidence in our painting as well. You can see before my washes dry out, I'm also putting some darkness where the roof sits on top of it. And there is an RV and there's also a car, so I ignored the car and I kept the RV because it kind of act against a medium shape in our painting. And I realized that when I added the RV, it kind of looked darker. I thought I was overcompensating, so I'm taking a little bit of water and trying to get off the paint from it. So that's all you need. If you go over the value of anything darker, you can get rid of it. So this is a grass patch. Grass patches are really hard to paint in watercolors unless you're painting a realistic one and taking your time. Since we are painting a loose landscape, we have to think everything as one single shape. There's one thing in painting anything loose is thinking as one whole shape than thinking of each and every individual shapes. If you think about painting each and every individual shapes, you lost in all the details, and you'll get frustrated and you'll give up on your painting. And you can see in a really fast way I did it. So I did my first layer, and before it dries out, what I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit of darkness at the bottom of the grass, so that gives the illusion of light and shadows for the grass. And you can see in a quick way we blocked it. So now I'm connecting the shape of the rocks to the grass. So I'll start with the gray rocks, and I'll looking at my rocks, and I'm not painting exactly as it is. I'm trying to change my the shape of the colors and everything. And you can see where I painted the rocks on the background, it's a mere shape, and even as well as in the midground. I'll give put some details on the foreground rocks, and as it comes to the midground and the midground and the background, I'll keep it to minimal. And it's the exact same thing. You put down a color, before it dries out, add a little bit of a darker tone. And years of painting in watercolors, I've noticed that whenever I paint ground, it looked really dull. And I studied some of the master paintings, and I saw like a lot of paintings of masters, how they did the ground. There's a little bit of texturing quality. So what I do is I press my brush really hard on my palette, so it gives that bristle looks like noisy bristles. And I take paint and I apply on the ground. You can see it looks like the texture looks a little bit of painted, but when it's seen from far distance, it gives the illusion of ground texture on our painting. I'm doing the exact same thing for the grass as well, for the moss patch, and I'm also adding a little bit of that water bits, the puddles in the moss patch. And I realized that I talked about colors, and I realized that I put the colors a little bit darker in the moss patch. But if you squint your eyes and if you see the reference, the moss patch is greenish, warmish tone than really dark green tone. But if you if you're following this tutorial, try to make sure to mix warmish green than a darker green, what I did. In order to do a warmish green moss patch, you can use cadmium yellow and yellow ochre in it, and add a little bit of blue in it, or any kind of green you have. And since the puddles looked really weak, so I want to create that the puddles are sitting on the moss patch. So I'm just adding a little bit of a darker tone wherever the puddle's sitting. Even though the puddles are looks like one flat shape in a reference, but I try to make it that it's there's a little bit of the puddle is going down. And this is the other thing. So wherever the moss patch ends, there is a little bit of a shadow happening. I tried to create it. I wasn't happy with it, and I don't want to fiddle with it, so I just went with the rocks. So whenever you fiddle with the area, if you think you're working too much, just focus on a different area. So that also helps you to not to get frustrated in one area and just go on the different area. So now you can see I'm adding the shadow for the rocks. As soon as I add the shadows, you can see the forms of the rocks taking place, and you can see it gives the illusion of the rocks. Now let's add those the details of the seaweed or the dirt which accumulates on the seashore. And it's really hard to paint just by doing each individual things. Instead, I use this brush. It is a brush which is used for calligraphy, and I'm using the brush, and I'm using the side of the brush to create the texture. It's really hard to create the texture by painting in each individual things. You can see that also creates that edge variation as well as the texture variations in the on the patches. And when I went to this place in Quebec and they asked this sculptures, I also added it. And if I would have done this painting again, I would have kept only one sculptures, and I moved the sculpture which is sitting on the front of the house. And because there's a concept called tangents in painting or drawing, you can look it up, and I'm trying not to do it. So I think I'm happy with whatever I have now, and I try to capture the essence, and we also paint it really loose without fiddling with it, and that's the most important thing. And now I'm adding the street poles. This is like the tertiary details, and this is also really important because it enhances perspective in your painting. And you can see as soon as we add those directional lines, it gives the illusion of perspective, and it takes us into the painting as well. But don't add those details in the beginning of the painting and have this in your back of your painting, because it is really necessary. When I see a lot of watercolorists or a lot of beginners or my friends who are starting with watercolors, they try to put a lot of details in the beginning. So the essence of painting any loose landscape or any painting is just capture the entire thing first. Then you can add the tertiary details on top of it. Now I'm going to add the eyelets in our painting, and I'm using Chinese white, and sometimes it is really hard to leave the eyelets because we're just painting on the one go. I'm also painting in a 9x12, and it is really hard to leave some of the eyelets, so I'm bringing back some of it. So remember, the key to loose watercolor landscape is to let go and embrace the spontaneity. It is also necessary to allow the medium to guide your painting. And practice and experiment a lot, and this will help you to find your unique style and approach your painting landscapes and watercolors. Thanks again for watching this loose landscape painting tutorial. Please feel free to share your thoughts on the video in the comment section below. If you have any other topics related to watercolors that you would like me to cover, please reach out to me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or leave a comment down below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for weekly uploads. And share with your fellow artists, friends, and family. And good luck with your painting, folks.